Josh Ledger had everything that many people dream of: a prestigious job, a massive paycheck, and the kind of power that made others hang on his every word. As a senior director at one of the largest corporations in the world, with a major branch in Minnesota, Josh earned $600,000 annually, alongside a hefty 20% bonus and a stock package. He had worked tirelessly for 27 years, climbing the corporate ladder with relentless ambition, never pausing long enough to reflect on the consequences of his actions or the people he stepped on along the way. And then, one cold November morning, everything fell apart. It started as a seemingly small incident, one that Josh, in his years of power and privilege, thought would simply go away. He had overseen the wrongful termination of a black woman, a dedicated employee named Denise Washington, a highly educated and hard-working individual with 2 master's degrees and 18 years of experience in her field, who had spent over a decade working diligently for the company. Denise was known for her dedication, her ability to teach and train others, and her success in transforming the company from being ranked 99th out of 99 in the network to number 4 within her first 6 months. She was the type of employee every company would want: modest, driven, and committed to excellence. Denise was respected by her peers, known for her work ethic and her ability to bring warmth and humanity to a workplace that often felt like a machine. When Denise was hired by the company, she took a step-down position from what she had originally applied for, with the promise of a promotion after a year of good performance. Upon her arrival, she discovered that her boss, Robert, who was less experienced, less educated, and lacked people skills, had been hired shortly after she joined. Robert, a young white man, had been with the company for only 3 years after graduating with his bachelor's degree. Denise didn't ask many questions, though she had many doubts in her mind about why she didn't get the position and why Robert was chosen to be her boss. Despite this, Denise approached the situation with professionalism, determined to make the best of her role. Denise was a quality manager who had been promised a promotion after her boss was promoted to a higher position. She had left a higher corporate job with a decent salary to move to Minnesota, a decision she would later come to regret after being unfairly fired. Denise had a track record of excellence. She trained her team to be the #1 performing team in the network, driven by her high standards and her insistence on bringing out the best in her team. She had worked tirelessly, ensuring that the company's products met the highest standards, and was confident that her hard work would pay off. However, instead of receiving the promotion she was promised, Denise found herself training a new hire, a young white man named Michael, who came to the company a year before Denise, working in a different department that Denise oversaw their metrics and coached regularly to improve performance. Michael had no experience in quality management or the necessary educational qualifications, yet he had been placed in the role Denise was supposed to fill. Denise was expected to train Michael and do Michael's job until he could learn and be successful in the position. During this time, the promises of Denise's promotion were never brought up again. Denise approached the situation with the utmost professionalism. Despite the obvious disparity in qualifications, she trained Michael with dedication and patience, sharing her extensive knowledge and guiding him through the complexities of the job. Denise did not simply go through the motions. She approached the training with passion, ensuring that Michael understood the nuances of quality management. She was committed to her responsibilities, even though the situation was deeply unfair. Denise held herself to a high standard, never allowing her frustration to interfere with her duty to the company or her colleagues. However, as time passed, Denise could no longer ignore the inequity of the situation. Eventually, she decided to confront her boss, Josh, and ask what had happened to the promotion she had been promised. When she brought up her concerns, Josh's demeanor shifted. His once cordial tone became curt, dismissive. He brushed off her questions and suggested she should focus on being a team player. From that moment, the environment began to change for Denise. Josh started creating a hostile work environment, one where every little mistake was scrutinized, and every success was ignored. He excluded her from important meetings, reassigned her projects without explanation, and began building a paper trail to justify her termination. Denise could feel the walls closing in, but she refused to be intimidated. She continued to do her job, to support her team, even as Josh's actions became more overt. Then, one day, without any warning, Denise was dismissed under the pretense of performance issues. The words cut through her, unfairly marking her as incompetent, tarnishing her reputation without cause. She knew deep down that she was being punished for reasons that had nothing to do with her work. Denise could still remember the way Josh had looked at her during her last meeting, a look that held no empathy, no compassion, only a cold, dismissive disdain. But Denise wasn't one to back down. She knew her worth, and she knew what she had faced wasn't just an unfortunate corporate decision. It was discrimination, plain and simple. She filed a formal grievance with the company, detailing not just her wrongful termination, but the broader pattern of discrimination that existed under Josh's management. The company launched a thorough investigation, and what they found was both damning and undeniable. The investigation uncovered a toxic culture fostered under Josh's leadership. It wasn't just Denise. Several employees had experienced similar treatment, subtle but pervasive biases that had pushed talented individuals to the margins. There were emails, testimonies from colleagues, and a pattern of promotions and demotions that painted a vivid picture of inequity. The truth was there, laid bare, and it was impossible to ignore. The board of directors had a choice to make, one that would define their company and its values. The decision came swiftly. Josh was called into a meeting, the kind of meeting he had held with countless subordinates over the years. Only this time, he was on the other side of the table. The roles had reversed, and the power that once filled his chest with pride now seemed to drain from him, leaving him hollow.
Mr. Ledyard, the HR director began, her voice steady, her eyes locking onto his. After a comprehensive investigation, we have concluded that your actions, specifically your treatment of Denise Washington, were discriminatory. We have no choice but to terminate your employment, effective immediately. The words echoed in the silent room. Josh sat there, stunned, his mouth slightly open. He tried to speak, to defend himself, to argue that he was being misunderstood. But the evidence was too strong, and the company had made up its mind. His decades of service, his years of loyalty, meant nothing compared to the lives he had hurt, the dreams he had crushed because of his unchecked prejudice. Josh was escorted out of the building that day, a cardboard box in his arms. He felt the stares of his former colleagues, the whispers that followed him down the hall. He had always been the one in control, the one who decided others' fates. Now he was just another man who had lost his job. As he stepped out into the cold Minnesota air, a chill ran through him, not from the temperature, but from the realization that his career, his identity, was gone. He had lost everything because he had chosen to see people like Denise as less than, as unworthy. Meanwhile, Denise, who had fought so hard for justice, stood in her modest home, her hands trembling as she received the news. A tear rolled down her cheek, not out of joy or triumph, but out of exhaustion. She had fought not just for herself, but for every other person who had been made to feel small, who had been overlooked or mistreated because of the color of their skin. She had faced the pain, the humiliation, and had come out the other side. She was not broken, she was stronger. The company issued a public apology, admitting their failure to address the discrimination within their ranks, promising to do better. They offered Denise her job back, along with a generous settlement. But Denise declined. She knew she deserved better, and she would find a place that valued her not just for her work, but for who she was. Her courage had not only brought justice for herself, but had also shone a light on the systemic issues that had been allowed to fester for far too long. This story spread across the corporate world, becoming a cautionary tale for those in positions of power. It was a reminder that no amount of success, no level of prestige, could justify discrimination. Josh Ledyard had lost his career, his reputation, and the life he had built for nearly 3 decades, all because he failed to see the humanity in others. And Denise? She moved forward, her head held high, a beacon of resilience and strength. She taught everyone that true power doesn't come from a title or a paycheck. It comes from standing up for what is right, even when the odds are stacked against you. Finally, before you take an unjust action, take a moment to truly reflect. Ask yourself if it's worth it. Think of the people in your life, your spouse, your children, your family, your friends. Think about how everything you've worked for, everything you've built, could change in the blink of an eye. When you find yourself on the verge of a discriminatory or unfair act, consider whether it's worth losing your job, your reputation, and the trust of those you care about. Whom are you trying to please, and why? What is the true cost of that momentary decision? Are you prepared for the consequences that could turn your life upside down in a split second? Let this be a reminder. The choices you make today can either uplift or destroy, not just your life, but the lives of those around you. Choose wisely.